Far away from the bright centers of the galaxy was a silent world covered in snow. The world was called Arender, and for thousands of years it had remained hidden under white storms. The planet had 2 moons that shone on the icy plains like cold lamps. The people of Arender had pale skin and light blue eyes that glowed softly in the dark. They were known as the White Ones. Long ago, their ancestors had ruled many stars, but now their cities were quiet and almost forgotten. Among them lived Princess Alara, the last daughter of the royal house. She lived in a tall crystal palace that stood above frozen lakes. The walls of the palace were made of clear glass stone that reflected the light of the moons. Every day, Alara walked alone through the halls, listening to the sound of wind moving through the broken towers. She was kind, but lonely. Her people believed emotion was dangerous. They said feelings could melt the heart and destroy control. So they trained every child to speak calmly, never laugh loudly, and never cry. Alara was different. She often stood near the edge of the palace balcony, staring at the sky, wondering what it would feel like to see the stars up close or to meet someone from another world. In the library, she read about other species humans, the ones who came from the blue planet called Earth. They were said to be warm-blooded, emotional, and full of chaos. The old records described them as loud dreamers who built, fought, loved, and forgave easily. To her people, humans sounded dangerous. To Alara, they sounded alive. One night, when the winds howled across the frozen plains, a bright fire appeared in the sky. It moved faster than anything she had ever seen. It wasn't a comet. It was a ship. The object screamed through the clouds and vanished behind the northern ridge. The next morning, the royal guards found metal debris half buried in the snow. A message beacon flickered weakly. The signals were foreign. The Council of Elders ordered the crash site sealed, afraid of contamination from outsiders. But Alara could not forget the fire in the sky. 3 days later, when darkness covered the land again, she took her lantern and rode a glider across the ice fields. The light from the lantern painted her face in soft blue. Her long white coat flowed behind her like wings. She followed the trail of broken metal until she reached a valley filled with steam and glowing fragments. There she saw them humans. They were struggling near the wreckage of a large exploration ship. The hull bore the name Vanguard. 5 survivors worked under the snowstorm trying to lift a power cell. They looked weak and cold. Their skin was darker than hers, their clothes heavy and wet with frost. She hid behind an ice ridge watching them. One man gave orders while helping another walk. His voice was firm but tired. He had short brown hair, a worn jacket, a patch on his arm that said Captain Elias Ward. Alara had read about humans but never seen one before. They looked fragile, yet their eyes burned with life. When one of them collapsed, she felt her heart tighten. She could hear her people's voices in her head saying, "They are outsiders. Do not interfere." But another voice inside whispered, "They need you." Without thinking, she stepped out into the open. The humans froze when they saw her glowing skin and white hair. Elias raised his weapon out of instinct but lowered it quickly when he saw her empty hands. She moved slowly toward them, her lantern lighting the snow between them. "You are not from this world," she said softly, her accent clear and calm. Elias nodded carefully. "We crashed. We need power and warmth." His breath came out as white mist. The man who had fallen wasn't moving. Alara knelt beside him. His pulse was weak. She took off her crystal crown and pressed it to his chest. The crown began to shine, sending a gentle wave of heat through his body. The man gasped and opened his eyes. The others stared, speechless. "What did you do?" Elias asked, stunned. "I shared my inner energy," she replied. "It can heal, but only a little." He looked at her with new respect. "They said your people couldn't feel," he murmured. Alara glanced at the man she had saved. Then they were wrong. That night she guided them to an empty outpost near the old capital. The humans set up a small fire inside a metal chamber. The light of the flames danced on the walls, something her people had not seen in centuries. Alara sat near the fire, studying it. "Your fire is alive," she said quietly. "It moves like it's breathing. Elias smiled a little. Fire means warmth. Life. It's how we survive. She looked at him curiously. Do you always travel through the stars, looking for warmth? He nodded. Sometimes it's warmth. Sometimes it's hope. The simplicity of his answer made her think deeply. For the first time, she realized how quiet her world truly was. The humans laughed, joked, and argued softly. They were hurt, but they still found energy to smile. She couldn't remember the last time anyone on her planet had smiled. Over the next few days, Alara helped them repair their equipment. She showed them how to extract crystal energy from the frozen caves. Elias watched her work, noticing small changes in her face. Her eyes seemed brighter each day, and faint pink color began to touch her pale skin. When she laughed once, the sound echoed through the hall like music. The humans stopped working just to listen. Your laugh, one of them said. It sounds like wind chimes. Lara blushed slightly, unsure how to respond. No one here laughs, she said honestly. We are taught it is unnecessary. That's a sad rule, Elias said. When the ship's power core finally came back online, celebrated by lighting more fires. Alara sat beside them, watching the flames rise. The warmth reached her fingers and face. It felt strange but wonderful. She turned to Elias. I did not know warmth could feel this gentle, she said. It is not pain, it is comfort, he nodded. You can't know comfort without feeling. She looked down at her hands. Then my people have forgotten what it means to live. Outside, snow continued to fall, but the humans had brought a small piece of their world to hers. They told her stories of Earth of oceans, forests, and cities full of color. She listened carefully, imagining places where rain was soft and the air smelled like flowers instead of frost. Every story made her feel more awake, but their peace didn't last. A warning light blinked on the human scanner. Something large was approaching through the sky. Alara's heart sank. Only one force could reach them so quickly, the Imperial Patrol. The same ancient power that had once ruled her people and exiled them to this frozen world. They had forbidden any contact with outsiders, claiming it was dangerous to their purity. If they discovered humans on Arender, they would not hesitate to destroy them. Elias noticed her sudden silence. What's wrong? He asked. They found us, she said softly. The Empire does not allow strangers. They will come for you. He clenched his fists. Then we'll fight. She shook her head. You cannot fight their ships. They will crush you from the sky. Elias looked around at his tired crew. We can't just run. The ship isn't ready. Alara closed her eyes, thinking. There is a hidden chamber under the old palace. My ancestors stored ancient energy cells there. If we can reach it, we may power your engines enough to leave before they arrive. He stared at her, surprised. You'd help us escape? Even if it means disobeying your rulers. She met his gaze without fear. You taught me something my people forgot what it means to care. I will not let them hurt you. That night, they traveled through the frozen tunnels beneath the palace. Alara led the way with her lantern, its light reflecting off the crystal walls. Elias walked behind her, watching how the light played across her hair. You're risking everything for us, he said quietly. She didn't turn. Perhaps some things are worth the risk. They reached the chamber just before dawn. Inside stood tall machines half buried in ice. The humans began to transfer the crystal energy into their reactor. It was hard work, but Alara helped tirelessly. As they worked, she asked Elias, Why did your people come this far from your home? He smiled sadly. We explore. It's what we do. Sometimes we crash. Sometimes we find new friends. That's how humanity grows, by meeting others. She asked, By understanding them, he said, even when they're different. She looked at him, her heart uncertain. Would your people understand mine? He thought for a moment. If they met you, yes. Before she could reply, an alarm rang through the tunnels. The Imperial ships had entered orbit. The ground trembled with distant blasts. They didn't have much time. Elias shouted for his crew to hurry. Alara activated an old defense field to hide the chamber from scans, but she knew it wouldn't last long. Her council would soon discover her betrayal. When the energy core was finally charged, Elias turned to her. "Come with us. We can take you away from this frozen prison." Alara hesitated. "If I leave, my people will be punished. They will call me a traitor." "You already saved them more than they know," he said. "You showed them what life means." She looked into his eyes, searching for truth. His face was tired but honest. She had never met anyone so brave and open. In that moment, she realized that warmth wasn't only from fire, it came from the heart. Outside, the storm grew stronger. The Imperial fleet's shadows covered the sky. Alara guided the humans to their ship and placed her lantern in Elias's hands. "This holds part of my energy," she said. "It will keep your core stable through the storm." He stared at her. "You're giving this up?" "It is only light," she said softly. "But you gave me warmth. That is greater." As the humans prepared for launch, the palace guards arrived. Tea. Days turned into weeks after the humans left Arendar. The world returned to its silence. The white storm swept across the frozen plains again, and the palace walls shimmered with cold light. But inside the heart of Princess Alara, something had changed forever. Every night she looked up at the stars, searching for a small glimmer, the ship Vanguard wondering if they had survived a long journey home. She remembered the warmth of their fire, the laughter of their voices, and the way Captain Elias Ward looked at her when he spoke about hope. His words stayed with her like a quiet flame inside her heart. Her people noticed the difference. She smiled sometimes now. Her eyes no longer seemed empty. Children whispered that the princess had seen something beyond the snow, something bright. The Council of Elders did not like it. They gathered in the frozen hall, their faces calm and emotionless. "Your actions brought danger to our world," said Elder Kale, the oldest among them. "The humans left traces of their energy here. If the Empire detects it, they will return and destroy us." Alara stood before them, her long white robe touching the icy floor. "The humans came in peace," she said firmly. "They did no harm. They helped us remember who we were before the silence." Kale's cold voice echoed. "Before the silence, we had war. Emotion is chaos. Control keeps us alive." She looked around at the others. "Control without feeling is not life," she replied softly. "It is sleep." The elders whispered among themselves. They did not punish her, but they watched her closely. From that day, Alara was forbidden to leave the palace. She spent her hours walking the high towers, thinking about the humans. Sometimes she lit small fires in hidden corners using the old stones that could still burn. She watched the flames move and felt that same warmth she once felt beside Elias. Then one morning the sky turned red. A deep vibration passed through the ground. The guards ran through the halls shouting. Alara rushed to the balcony and looked up. Above the clouds she saw giant shapes moving dark ships with long silver wings. The Imperial fleet had returned. The Empire's broadcast echoed across every city. A cold voice filled the air. "Unauthorized contact with an inferior species has been detected on Arendar. The world will be cleansed to restore purity." Lara's heart froze. They were going to destroy everything. The council gathered again. The elders wanted to surrender and let the Empire take her for judgment, hoping it would save the planet. But Alara knew the Empire never spared anyone once it called them impure. They would burn her world to ashdot, as she argued with the council. A new light appeared in the sky, blue and bright, cutting through the storm clouds. A ship was descending fast. It wasn't one of the Empire's vessels. When it broke through the clouds, Alara gasped. The shape was familiar. It was the Vanguard. The humans had come back. The ship landed on the ice plains near the palace. Alara ran through the halls and out into the storm. The air burned against her face, but she didn't stop. When she reached the crash field, she saw them stepping out Captain Elias and his crew, dressed in reinforced suits, carrying supplies and energy cannons. "You came back," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Elias smiled under his frost-covered visor. "We picked up the Empire's transmission. We couldn't leave you here." Lara's eyes filled with tears, something her people had not seen in generations. "They will kill you if they find you. Then they'll have to try," he said simply. "We humans are hard to erase." Behind him, his crew began unloading equipments, small defense turrets, energy shields, and signal jammers. They worked quickly, surrounding the palace with protective fields. The human ship glowed with warm orange light against the white snow. For the first time, the cold world looked alive. But the Empire's ships were already in orbit. The sky darkened as hundreds of drones fell through the clouds, leaving trails of fire. The ground shook with impact. The humans took positions, while Alara ran to the palace tower to activate the ancient defense systems her ancestors had left behind. The old machines trembled as they came to life. Beams of blue light shot into the sky, forming a shimmering barrier above the capital. It wasn't strong enough to last long, but it gave them time. Elias joined her at the control platform. "This shield won't hold forever," he said. "I know," Alara replied, "but there is another way." She led him down to the deepest chamber beneath the palace, where the old heart of Arendar slept, a huge crystal core that powered the entire planet's weather systems. It was the same energy that kept the world frozen. "This is our world's heart," she explained. "It keeps the cold alive. If I merge it with your ship's fusion core, we could create a storm powerful enough to drive them away." Elias frowned. "It could kill you." She looked at him calmly. "It might, but if we do nothing, everyone dies." He shook his head. "There has to be another way." She placed her hand on his arm gently. "Your people taught me what love means. Love is not words. It is sacrifice." He looked at her in silence. Then he nodded slowly. "Then I'll do it with you." Together, they worked through the night, connecting ancient cables and crystal conduits. The sound of battle grew louder above them. The humans on the surface were holding the line, firing into the sky as drones rained down. The shields shimmered like glass under heavy blows. When the last connection was made, Alara placed her lantern, the one she had given him before, into the heart's control socket. The light merged with the crystal, spreading warmth across the cold metal floor. The world began to shake. The ice cracked across the plains. The twin moons glowed brighter as energy rose into the atmosphere. The Empire's fleet fired down beams of destruction. But the combined power of human fusion and Arendar's core burst outward like a sunrise. A storm of golden and white light swallowed the sky. The Imperial ships tried to flee, but their engines failed. The wave of warmth struck them, melting their cold armor and scattering their fleet into the void. The drones fell lifeless to the ground. When the light finally faded, the snow was no longer white. It had turned silver. Glowing softly under the sun that broke through for the first time in centuries, but Alara collapsed beside the crystal core, her strength gone. The glow from her eyes dimmed. Elias rushed to her side and lifted her gently into his arms. "Stay with me," he whispered. "It's over. We won." She smiled weakly. The warmth. "It's beautiful. You'll see more of it," he said, his voice shaking. She touched his face softly. "I feel life. I never thought it could be so gentle." Her hand slipped, and her eyes closed. The crystal behind her pulsed once, then went quiet. Elias held her close, tears falling on her pale hair. The other humans entered the chamber quietly, their faces filled with sorrow. None of them spoke. Outside, the people of Arendar came out of their homes for the first time in living memory. They felt rain, not snow, but warm rain falling on their faces. Children laughed. Old men cried. The cold world was alive again. Elias placed Alara's lantern on the platform beside her and whispered, "You've changed everything." Then he stood and looked around. "We're not leaving her behind," he said to his crew. "She belongs to the stars now." They built a crystal chamber for her under the heart of the planet. The people of Arendar gathered there to watch as her body merged with the glowing energy. The light spread through the planet's network like rivers of gold. From that day on, the storms of Arendar carried warmth instead of cold. Years passed. The humans stayed for a time, helping rebuild the world. They taught the White Ones how to live without fear, how to laugh, how to plant life in the new soil. In return, The people of Arendar shared their technology and healing energy with the humans. Together they built a great city under the melted ice, half human, half Arendorian. Shining like a beacon across the stars, Elias never forgot Alara. Every year. On the day the storm ended, he climbed to the highest tower and watched the sky turn white and gold. The people called it the Day of the Warm Snow. On that day, everyone lit small fires in their homes and remembered the princess who had given her life to bring warmth to their world. One evening, years later, as Elias grew older, he visited the chamber beneath the palace one last time. The core still glowed softly, and in its center floated the shape of Alara's lantern, still burning bright. He smiled and whispered, "You were right. Love isn't weakness." A young Arendorian girl stood beside him. She had pale skin, but golden eyes, the color of sunlight. "My mother said the warmth we feel now is her gift," the child said. Elias nodded. "Yes, she taught both our worlds what it means to care." The girl looked up at him. "Do humans love like that often?" He smiled softly. "Not often enough. But when they do, it changes everything." When Elias passed away years later, the humans buried him beside the crystal heart of Arendar. The people of both species came together to honor him. His name was carved beside hers on a tall pillar of ice and gold. "Here rest Elias Ward and Princess Alara, who proved that warmth can live even in the coldest heart." Centuries later, travelers across the galaxy would speak of the White Princess and the man from Earth who brought her world back to life. The story spread to every corner of space. It became more than history, it became a promise. Whenever explorers found frozen planets, they told the tale of Arendar and lit a single flame to honor her memory. And sometimes, when the storms cleared, the new settlers swore they saw a shimmer in the clouds, a woman's figure made of white light.